What's going on, man?
Not much, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me again, Sejan Sarowick.
Good to be back in the chair.
I missed you. I heard you
Hey,
slipped into an alternate universe where you recorded with my sister.
something to that effect. Um, Hold on, I got noise coming through my headphones that is not you.
I don't
That's
know what
very
to tell
weird.
you about that. Is it me?
No, it's not you.
Well, I guess
Um,
before we go further, I'm Devon Decker. He's Sejan Sarowick. He's got noise coming through his headphones that's not me. What is it? What is the noise, Sejan? You have me on the edge of my seat.
I think that Uno just decided to start up on its own
Well,
on my computer. Oh God.
I
We noticed you downloaded us but haven't played us yet, Sejan. What are you doing?
Oh no, that means that it might happen to me too, because what I was doing as I was like, hold on, Sejan, in addition to the Say Report Juniors are upstairs, so getting them all squared away with their juice boxes and their orange slices and their corn and peg, I was buying
Fantastic.
Uno because we're going to be playing Uno on stream, I guess.
Yeah. Hells yeah. I'm so excited. I'm stupidly excited.
You're stupid.
I resemble that remark.
Yes, you do. That's why I made it. Sejan and I had a death pact regarding Uno. If he sent me proof of purchase for Uno, I would buy Uno, and I
Yep.
just did. I had to do it before we started recording, otherwise he'd know.
Yeah, man. Like I said, Uno knew. I think that's what it is. Is Uno sensed that I was calling somebody that also owned Uno, and it was just like, oh, I think you want to do this right
You
now.
guys want to play Uno? Huh? Uno?
God damn, man. Fucking Ubisoft. That's all I have to say about that. Part of the whole process of downloading Uno means you also have to download Uplay and like sign on to that shit apparently, which was ridiculous, even just to play it on your own. And I don't understand why every video game company feels like it needs its own service. Like why? Like what is the benefit? Is there something I'm missing?
Okay, so it's interesting because it's something that we're experiencing in the land of streaming right now.
Hmm.
It's the reason why all of the Marvel shows were canceled on Netflix,
Oh, okay.
because everybody saw how friggin' lucrative it was to have their own streaming service.
Right.
So rather than, let Steam get a cut of the action, let Netflix get a cut of the action, we're going to just start our own and rake in that same lucrative money from advertisers and subscribers. You get paid
Yeah.
coming and going if you're running a streaming service. And
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah, I guess in the terms of the video game thing, like it's so inconvenient. With the streaming thing, like it's just me that's affected. If I want to watch a certain thing, I've got to go to a certain streaming service, and that's annoying, right? But if we want to play anything online together, like it means it just feels like it's forcing your friends to be involved in something that you've made a choice about. You know what I mean?
I understand
Like
where you're coming from, but here's the
that's what
thing.
feels gross.
Here's the other reason why like Epic has a game store now. And I mean, Uplay's been around for a while, but why these things are actually important is
Yeah.
because Steam is a festering cesspool. I think we
Okay.
all know that. I think with that Freeman Chronicles, whatever it was called last year, we saw how much Valve cares about their IPs. And we already know that they want nothing to do with policing the games that are available through the Steam client.
Yeah.
So it now is the time for the Hulu of video game streaming to come along and be like, hey, you got a good idea. I'm gonna make it better.
Yeah. Well, and I would really appreciate another service that's maybe like aggregating a bunch of this shit. I wouldn't mind one or two services that I have to go to, but the fact that every time I load up a game, I'm gonna have to either sign into my WB points, my Uplay points, my EA whatever nonsense bullshit. It's just like it almost feels like it's every game.
Well,
Like,
it is,
and that's the thing, right?
And the real issue is that it is every game, and that's also a huge issue with AAA gaming right now. Is we don't want to give you a game, we want to give you a service.
Yeah.
Mobile gaming has come home to your PC and your console.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. They want active user information. They want people who are logging in daily because that proves retention of the product. That is what video games have become. And I mean, this isn't even what I wanted to talk about right now, but it's so true regarding
Yeah.
Uplay. Like
Yeah.
I was with your brother, driving him to the house, and he said, "Oh, it's on Uplay. Why didn't I just buy it on Uplay? Why did I buy it through Steam?" Because he apparently bought it and hasn't installed it yet. Because the second you try to install it, it's like, "Hey, you need Uplay." I'm Uno. And his response was, "I don't understand why everybody's so upset that every game company has their own like launcher now." And on paper, I don't really care either, right? My name goes through like 4 computers a day, man. We have no names. No names. We are nameless. 1984. Yeah, right. That's a typo.
It's not necessarily that I am upset that every game, but I'll give you a reason why. For instance, me, like the boat that I'm in, and the reason why it sucks that every game needs to have a launcher along with it now is CPU, man. Like I just like my computer is not the greatest, not the best, and I'm not necessarily in a position to be upgrading my PC every 6 months or whatever to be keeping up with shit. So the problem is I start up a stupid game like Uno or any of them, Risk, like any of these silly ass games that I just want to play
I'm not
on my
buying
own.
Risk. I'm being preemptive and telling
That's
you
fine.
I'm not buying Risk.
You don't have to play Risk. The one player the one player Risk game that they have, at least in the version I've got, is phenomenal. And I can lose my shit about that someday. But the thing is any one of those games I want to pull up, right? Like I was just playing Worms the other day, and I've got to run the game, I've got to run Steam, and now on top of that, I've got to run Uplay at the same time. And then if we ever want to do anything online, I'm gonna want to have Discord or Skype going so that we can also be talking to each other too, right? Because like those are going to be the better services to go through. Even if a game has a built-in chat function, I'm not going to want to use that. I'm going to want to use something that's more reliable and more at the ready for me, right? So like part of it is convenience. The fact that I hate that I have to start up 3 different services in order to get into one game. That sucks. But the other part of it is legitimately, it's also slowing my shit down. Like I don't know what fucking Uno is going to run like on my PC once we start playing each other. It'll
Well,
be interesting to see.
yeah, you're not wrong about that. It sucks, but what we're discussing is the symptom, not the disease. And
Yeah.
the disease is AAA gaming. These companies, your Ubisofts, your Activisions, your EA, they all want to have services that people are continually paying into. It's
Yeah.
why I'm super happy that Blizzard apparently got Destiny 3 in the divorce.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, man.
was it Activision that was part of that? They got both the
Activision.
AFC and the NFC commemorative plates. That's fine. I'll
Yeah.
take Destiny.
Speaking of Destiny, like the other side of all of this is not only do they want to keep you on as a game, like they also want to make sure that you can't sell the game that you've got anymore. Because like a whole other side of this shit is that the physical doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is the online presence aspect of these games, to the point where you and I were just talking the other day. We bought all the DLC for Destiny, or I did for
Well,
Destiny
I already
2.
had Osiris and Mars,
Right.
so like until it's time for Forsaken, I don't see the reason to.
You
pay
don't
for
need
that
it.
yet.
Yeah.
I'm
No, yeah.
sorry.
No. It's yeah, like I get it. He's right. But the thing is that if you buy the Forsaken disc, it's actually not a disc. All you're getting is a code to unlock shit that you already have downloaded, and like I'll let Zach like take that to task because I've already talked about on disc DLC issues and shit like that. But like you're just unlocking stuff that you've already got already downloaded onto your PS4, and on top of that, the disc is just Destiny 2 again, which I already owned. But there's no way for me to go out and buy a pack of the rest of that game at the like it's ridiculous. For $15, I was able to buy all of the DLC, which is great, but it did mean that I now have this useless disc because I already have Destiny 2. So the disc is worth, what do we say, 75 cents?
75 cents. 85 if you're a pro member at GameStop.
Oh god. Yeah. Woo, a whole 85 cents, which I'm not saying like it's a weird situation to be in because like I understand that like the selling and reselling of games was definitely putting a dent in a lot of the industry 15 years ago. But the solution is like it's cutting your nose off to spite your face, man. Like it's really killing me that like I can't let a friend borrow this game, right? Like everything is so hooked into the digital now that my fingerprints have to be there in order for it to run that
Well,
sort of shit.
I mean, Destiny is also a real interesting one because I am rocking. There are 4 PS4s around this house, right?
Right.
Just collected through various not so nefarious means. We have 4 PS4s, and all of them are hooked up to something. All 4 of them could be in use right now.
Right.
I'm not, that feels like a brag, but I'm just saying, like, that's the thing that we have in this house. Destiny 2 is the only game where if I go to another PS4 and start playing that game, all of my stuff is there.
Yeah.
Like I was jumping PS4s for Spider-Man, and that required me to upload my save files and re-download them. Like one of the beautiful things about Resident Evil 2 is that I've beaten it on 3 of the 4 PS4s and have
Nice.
different like cycles running. I love that. Like I don't want to muddy up one save file with that. I love that my streaming one is like this is what I've done on the one where I stream. And like my 4K one on my 4K monitor is this is the one that I learned the game on.
Right.
It's one of those things. But it does boggle my mind that a game like Destiny 2, everything is in the cloud.
Right.
You don't really own anything in addition to everything that you just said.
Right.
Like it's still on their servers, and when their servers go down one day, first of all, the game will be over anyway.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Their servers go down all the time.
No,
I mean,
no.
they've
I
gotten
mean
better.
forever. I
Yeah,
mean like
yeah, I know. You mean eternally.
I
But
mean like how I can't play Ghostbusters co-op anymore, and that
Right.
breaks my heart. God, Ghostbusters co-op. What a fucking Wild West that was. Everybody wanted the ghost to go into their trap. And it's like, guys, this is a co-op experience. What are you doing?
Oh man. Oh God.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a symptom of all these services. The question I do have though, it looks like the Forsaken Destiny 2 comes in one of those juicy, thick Blu-ray cases. Is that true, or is it just like regular size?
Oh no, the Destiny Forsaken, like the special edition one that comes with all of the DLC along with it.
Yeah, the
It's
one
just
that you
it's
bought.
just a regular. No, it's just a regular size PS4.
Like
There is like a super deluxe edition that's like $80, but honestly, I don't know what you get in that.
I'm sure
Like,
you just get 3 more inserts. Like
yeah.
that's all it's gonna be. Like in addition, you get what was like pre-order bonus content
Right.
that we're now selling to you for a $30 premium. It's gross. It really is gross. And I look back at when I was younger, and it was this time where I had weirdly disposable income because I was unemployed. Like so I was getting unemployment and and I'm like and not working. So I bought Mortal Kombat 9, right? That's what everybody calls it, right? No one
Like the
just calls it
remake one,
Mortal
the, like,
Kombat.
the like re-release Mortal Kombat that they did.
The ninth one.
Yeah, like the reinvention, right? Where
Yeah,
they,
the
like,
reboot.
told-
The reboot
yeah,
of the series. That was the
yeah.
first 3 games in it. I bought that game 3 times. I'm not proud of that fact that I bought it 3 times, but I bought one that came with the really nice arcade stick controller. And then I went to Toys R Us and I bought it because that was the only way to get a katana like suit. And then I also bought it from Best Buy and
Yeah.
got the suit. And then I took those things, right? And that was the whole thing, is that like, thank God retailer exclusive DLC has gone the way of the dodo. Because that was awful. That was the dumbest thing. But
Yeah.
it scratched my, actually, honestly, thank God my collector's envy went the way of the dodo. Because it totally scratched that itch where I'm like, I need to have it all.
Yeah.
Like I bought
Yeah.
Ghostbusters from a couple of different retailers because it was the only way to get the gold proton pack and the second movie suits. And that's literally purely cosmetic.
Well, and I think that jumping the shark on all this was always the Batman series. Like Rocksteady and the Batman series was always just notorious, yeah, for this for the retailer
The
exclusive.
Catwoman
Like,
shit that I still haven't
I
played
mean,
because
yeah,
I'm
but
like,
not,
is it
but
part of
even
the game?
more, but even more than the Catwoman. Like Catwoman was definitely a huge example of that, but that was really only like 20% of the exclusive like buy-in shit that you could get. There were suits, there were Batmobiles on the on Arkham Knight, like depending on which one you went to, there were scenarios. I mean, there was straight up like Joker play stuff that you could only get from certain retailers. Yeah, but we've talked about that before. But yeah, like
Well,
retailer
do you know
exclusive
what?
DLC
Things
shit,
that I
like
am not proud of, but I will admit right here freely, is I went to 7-Eleven specifically to get Batman Beyond costume because you had to buy a Slurpee to get that code. And the same with like God of War 3, it
mhm,
had exclusive 7-Eleven DLC.
right.
It's just like that's gross. And like it's I'm if the if games as service is what I need to deal with in order to like get away from that stuff, sign me up.
Yeah.
Honestly, sign me up. But here's the thing. I love these games like Resident Evil. The reason Resident Evil 2 grabbed me the way it did, I know we said we weren't going to talk about it anymore, but that was a lie. Let's be honest, everybody. But it's not going to be as
I
in
am
depth.
perfectly happy to keep talking
No, I
about
know
it.
you are. I know. That's the thing, though. I don't want. This is not a Resident Evil podcast. This is a podcast about literally everything. But the reason that one grabbed me was because it was a really engrossing single player experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's what I needed. That's the type of stuff I need. And then on the other side of the coin, God of War is also like supposed to be a really engrossing single player experience that bored me to tears. So I mean like it single player, they're saying that single player is no longer viable in the current
Right.
market.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong because everybody wants to do a service. And if the game companies are saying that it's not viable to do a single player experience game, that's because they want people to only be able to buy their service games.
Right.
I mean, look at Shadows of Mordor, right? Was that the sequel? I think
Well,
so.
Shadows of Mordor was the first one, wasn't it? And
Oh,
then the
well,
second one,
whatever the second one
Shadows
was,
of yeah, yeah.
Shadows
Uh,
of the Empire, or
Shadows of Mordor 2,
Welcome
more
back
Mordor.
to the place. Mordor. Um Love it. Like that game, that's a single player experience, right? It's not. And then they still had like the loot boxes when that came out where you would get exclusive orcs to follow you around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's gross. It's like I don't know. It really bothers me, that type of stuff. I don't, and it's not something that I talk about a lot because I'm still able to sort of alienate myself from it. I'm able to find the indie games that are specifically a nice single player campaign.
Right.
I'm able to find the AAA titles that are still a nice single player campaign, like Spider-Man or Resident Evil 2. Games that work just for me, and I don't need someone else to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of, is there like another form of entertainment that we really take in that way? And really there's not, right? Like I
Books? Oh, or
no,
do you mean
because
multiplayer,
if I buy
not
if
single?
no, 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 no. I mean like but the multiplayer with like exclusive like versions and like yeah, I guess you could say that there's like, Barnes and Noble versions of books or whatever, but that's that's few and far between. And when they do come out, like there's a value to that everybody kind of agrees upon, right? But like if I watch a TV show here, I don't get a wholly different experience than if my mom watches the same TV show on her like Sony flat screen back home. You know what I mean? Or like, anybody that out there that owns an Emerson or owns a Panasonic, like they're not getting different versions of the movies that we're watching. We're all watching the same shit, right? And like it's interesting to me how video games has allowed for this particular system to kind of thrive and become gross and abusive in some ways, but really I can't think of another form of entertainment that could really allow for this kind of shit to happen.
And the problem with video games is that they haven't found their bubble yet, or rather, they found their bubble and recovered from it,
Mhm.
because like they had the bubble burst in the '80s, and if it
Yeah,
weren't for the Nintendo Entertainment System, there would be no video games.
yeah,
Like Atari was making too many games that were the same thing, and that is odd, right? Because I'm thinking like yeah, we haven't had the bubble because the bubble has burst on like televisions. The bubble has burst on media, right? If not in the VHS Betamax fight, then definitely in the HD DVD Blu-ray fight.
Yes.
So it's like it's not worth it. This is not worth it to compete in this way but video games has not had that happen since its reinvention in 1985.
Right.
And that's the big issue, which is crazy to put it in those terms, but it really is the issue.
Yeah. Man. So what did you want to talk about, Dev?
Oh, geez. You know what? I wanted to talk about video games, actually. And first of all, like I was saying, Sejan, it's nice to have you back from our crossover episodes where we got to look into the alternate timeline where you and Dale started a podcast. And my favorite part about that is it's totally believable that you two would have somehow started a podcast together.
Hell yeah.
And it is all from the night of the Gincident where you and Dale had such an in-depth conversation about The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Like, she wouldn't shut up about it. She's like, man, CJ, he's a smart guy. He was making me think of stuff that I hadn't even considered. And then you were also like, wow, Dale, like, for someone who's never really seen the movies, real insightful. So, like, it's cool to, like, that we now have a semi, like, piece of that universe within our universe.
Yeah, man. Well, and you know, ever since the loss of that recording, it was nice to have something out there for the two of us.
Right, which is one of the reasons why once Say Report Jr. took off the way that it did, I'm like, oh, we have to do a crossover because I love how Dale and Sejan interact. And it sucks that the world never got to see it because I don't even know why I did that. I was feeling so good from that night. I was on such a high horse that I'm like, yeah, a pint of gin. That's a good idea. It's not. It's never a good idea, ladies and gentlemen. But on the inverse of that, we got to see if you and Dale had started that podcast, what it would have been like when your brother and I started Say Report Siblings, or it probably wouldn't have been Junior, right?
Right.
Say Report the Lesser. I don't. No, like I really enjoyed talking to your brother about the stuff that we talked about because I don't know, like you and I are a really nice yin and yang. I think that I listened to you talk about how you and Dale are the ones who are kind of like the pillars that keep the Say Report family aloft. And you're not wrong. Even though she vehemently denied that, is like, if it were just me and your brother talking, we would be so analytical. There's a reason our episode is 30 minutes longer than yours. And it's because...
You guys got into some shit, though. You guys got deep into some shit.
Not only did we really get deep into some shit, but, like, that's the reason, is I will spiral down a hole, and you know just when to throw out a line and pull me back in. And Dale is the same way with your brother. But one of the things that we got real analytical about is Link's Awakening remake coming out for the Switch.
Sure.
And as I said on our last episode, I played through The Legend of Zelda because it was its 33rd anniversary last week.
Yeah.
And then I was on such a Zelda high horse, right, which is not surprising for Devon Decker, that I'm like, oh, I want to dive into another Zelda game. And I bypassed The Adventure of Link completely because it's a terrible game that I will one day need to give its fair shake. But for right now, you're a terrible game. Stay in the corner. Stay in the corner.
I'm not going to fight you on that one.
And no. And jumped back into Link's Awakening. And I have Link's Awakening Original and Link's Awakening DX. So this week, I beat both of them.
Which one's DX?
DX is the one that came out when the Game Boy Color came out.
Right, okay.
And they didn't redo the game, but they colored the game. And they made a couple of small tweaks, and they added a dungeon.
Well, that's a big one.
Well, the dungeon is not really a dungeon. It's like a collection of rooms. It's closer to the shrines from Breath of the Wild than an actual dungeon.
I get you.
Yeah, I mean, which is interesting because playing through it again after playing Breath of the Wild, I'm like, you were probably like the blueprint for those shrines in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you know, the shrines serving as mini dungeons essentially throughout that whole game, right? It was like the whole point of them. I mean, I don't think that that's a hard conclusion to come to, right?
Right, but playing through it and seeing that it's like match the colors because it's called the color dungeon
Yeah,
colloquially, and
right,
it's like, oh, there are two beetles in this room. One has a red shell, one has a green shell. Kill them and then put their shells in the corresponding colored hole.
right.
And it's like, okay, thank you. And so playing through those games again, I realized some things about Link's Awakening that make me curious why it is the one getting the Switch remake.
Really?
Getting a $60 Switch remake.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Price we could talk about maybe after it comes out and see what they
And
do with
see what
it.
they do
Talk
with it,
about
right? Because
that.
there's
Yeah.
still, I mean, if they add a second quest, then I'm all for it. But here's what I want. Nintendo, I am talking to you directly right now. If you
Know
are
you're
listening
listening.
to this and you can get this to Nintendo, here is what I want, and here's what I think most people want. Especially, I dipped a toe in the Link's Awakening randomizer today, like scant hours ago, and it does this because it is important. Link's Awakening plays like baby's first Zelda.
Okay. All
It
right.
like it tells you everything. Everything is so explicitly spelt out for you
Yeah.
where you have to go to the desert. Okay, so you go to the desert and then you get a key in the desert. And then here's Mr. Owl and he's like, you got to go to the waterfall. It's up near the mountain. It's like, why are you holding my hand so much this game?
Yeah.
Like, let me explore and find it in ways that, like, but really, it is the first Zelda game to do that, to not
Okay.
just let you explore.
Okay.
And
Yeah. So it lays stuff out for you and that you end up seeing in subsequent Zeldas or that you feel like they don't ever really do again.
they don't really ever do it like that again. I
Mm.
mean, the
Okay.
owl shows up in Ocarina of Time, but he shows up, but he's never as explicit, or maybe he is. I don't really remember Ocarina of Time as much as I should, as he is in Link's Awakening. But I
Yeah.
think in a lot of ways, Link's Awakening was supposed to be this hyper accessible game for people.
Yeah.
But it gets annoying. So Nintendo, what you need to do with the Switch remake, if you are not giving us a second quest, and I'm not going to be upset if you don't give us a second quest. I'm just saying, in subsequent playthroughs, if I beat the game once, either give me the option to disable the owl, or give me the ability to skip those cutscenes by hitting the
Oh,
start button.
skipping cutscenes in a Nintendo game though. Jeez, I don't know, man.
Because the cutscenes aren't really cutscenes.
Yeah.
They're info dumps.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying give me the ability to skip the cutscene with Marin where you sit on the beach and she is, spoilers for Link's Awakening, I wish I could fly away from this island. I wish I were a seagull.
Right.
Like, that's a beautiful moment. I really enjoy that moment in the game. That does not bother me. But things that do bother me, if every time I play it, and having played through Link's Awakening and then played through DX, is that owl showing up and being like, oh, that's got a fish on it. Should probably go to the waterfall. It's located under the mountain.
Nintendo wasting my time with unnecessary dialogue in a Zelda game is inherent in its DNA, though, which is made all the more evident by the fact that I'm the guy that will eternally press X to the point where I accidentally start the conversation over again. Every
Yes.
fucking time. I'm the guy that's just like, okay, I get it. Click, click, click. Fuck, no, I don't want to ask you again. I didn't mean to ask you again. Click.
Which is one of my favorite things in Link to the Past. I mean, I replayed it on like regular Super Nintendo, an American version, not a Japanese version. And do you understand? Yes or not at all are the two
Right.
options.
Right.
And I'm like, not at all is such a Like, what a jerky way to say it, Nintendo.
Well, and then that's a whole other thing. Is Link always seems to come across as an ass in the dialogue options when you're not even meaning to be. Like I was thinking about this because I was actually replaying some Breath of the Wild this week. Just because, like honestly, I don't know what compelled me to. I must have been feeling some vibes off of you all the way over here, man. So like I threw Breath of the Wild in and I started some of the opening stuff with how do you say his name? Rohan? King
Rowan.
Rowan? Okay.
Yeah.
But up on the plateau, right? And there's these moments when he's talking to you, and your dialogue options are either like fuck off or buzz off, and it's just like, well, okay, both of these options are rude. I guess I'll choose the less rude of the two, but I don't want to tell him either one of these, really. Like,
Yeah. But I mean, I guess the reason why is Nintendo seems to understand that their games are being like used in speedrunning.
yeah,
Like with Kirby Star Allies feeling
yeah,
like such a good speedrun game, and the Funky Kong mode in the Tropical Freeze re-release.
yeah, right.
And also like Toadette and Nabbit being available in New Super Mario Brothers Deluxe.
Yeah,
Like things that like AKA make the game easier, but also make the game move a lot faster.
yeah. I don't know how much it is. Like I can totally see how that benefits speed running and all that sort of stuff, but I also feel like a lot of that stuff is, I mean, for lack of a better term, like you're talking about like baby modes, right? Like you're talking about like, hey, your kid wants to play this game, and Nintendo wants your kid to be able to play this game. And there were a couple of those games out there that they let get hard, which I don't know how I feel about them then going back and putting like these modes in that make them a little bit easier to play because I don't know, it was kind of interesting to see like specifically with the Tropical Freeze stuff. I don't feel it so much with the Mario one because Mario's always felt like a game that you're supposed to play with your kids, you know, with the fact that like if you fall you bubble up and all that sort of stuff. Um but the idea that in Tropical Freeze that now there's a way to play it without failing, essentially, it feels a little weird because Donkey Kong has always been like that harder platformer in the Nintendo family. You know, still family friendly, still definitely something that I played with my dad when I was like 6, right? But it definitely was not the easy game that I played. You know, I don't know.
I mean,
I feel a little weird
I
about that stuff.
definitely understand where you're coming from in that. I have not played it. I've owned Tropical Freeze for almost a year
Yeah,
on the Switch, and I have not tried it because I had it on the Wii U and I liked it, but it didn't grab me the way that the first 3 did. And
yeah,
then I got it as a gift, and I'm like, oh, thank you, because I'd like to finish this game
yeah.
because I got rid of my Wii U to buy a Switch,
Hmm.
but I don't want to use Funky Kong mode until after I beat it the
Yeah,
way that the game was initially intended.
yeah,
And that's why I'm saying it. And here's the thing that they found: they found a really nice happy medium, Zach Galifianakis, to sorry, where it satisfies the baby mode that you just pointed out, but it also satisfies like speedrunners to the fact that like it's not bad to use this mode. Like
yeah,
there's still some level of skill required to be Funky Kong.
yeah. I get that. I can see that for sure.
I mean, like you watch a run of the game using the Funky Kong mode, it's impressive. It doesn't feel like what a speedrun would feel like if you were Nabbit in New Super Mario Brothers, who
Right,
doesn't take damage,
right.
and the only thing that can kill you is falling in a pit. Like that's fun. Like I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it'd be a fun way to rush through that game, but it wouldn't be the same as playing as Funky Kong, where yes, you have a double jump, and yes, because you're on your surfboard, you can jump on spikes once. Like that feels more like what the Toadette character is,
Yeah,
where she gets a second chance if she falls into a pit.
hmm,
But
yeah,
that's what I'm saying is that have that baby mode, that turn on, that owl guiding you everywhere
right.
in the remake of Link's Awakening. But then once you complete the game, give us a no text mode. Like, because that would go so far in making that a game that I would continue to play.
For sure, man. For
And
sure.
it's
I
and it's
mean,
and I mean, you look
it
at
also could be something like just turn the tech, like making it a toggle option just in the options. You know, like there's plenty of games out there that are like tutorials on or off. Like, like that. It could also be that, like, because you'd still have to play through the game away with listening to that guy, which honestly, at some point, it's like having what's his name, Navi, following you around the whole
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like it'd just be really nice if we could get rid of this part of the game.
Hmm.
Not because I enjoy playing that game. I mean, I I haven't played Link's Awakening since DX came out, where I played it all the time to try and get a deathless run because you get a special cutscene at the end if you do that. But playing it again today, not today, this week, I enjoyed it immensely. I'm like, this is a really well built game. But the thing that like got on my nerves the second time is this owl showing up and being like, here's explicitly where you need to go. And the really hard part about that is that there are certain moments where the game doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, because like you eventually have a ghost following you and you have to take him back to his house,
Hmm.
and you don't know what the house is. You just got to explore around until you enter his house. And that's a cool moment because it encourages exploration in a
Yeah.
way that the rest of the game doesn't.
For sure, man.
So I
For
would
sure.
want more of that. And if I could just toggle the owl on or off. But the problem is that the owl is such a big part of the story. So that's why I'm saying let's split the difference, and if I beat the game once, I can skip the owl.
Hmm.
Really, it's Castlevania Aria of Sorrow logic.
Yeah.
That's the first place that I can think of it. I don't know if it happens in Symphony of the Night.
But I mean,
It,
they even apply some of that feeling to Resident Evil 2, right? In the remake of it, at least I don't remember how it plays out so much in the original version, but the idea that when you start the next character, like they fly through a lot of the original stuff, right? You don't even play the tutorial
you
level,
don't
do
play
you?
the
You know,
you
yeah,
you start 30 minutes into the game,
right, exactly. So
where
like
I mean like
it
30
shaves off a
minutes.
ton
I
of that,
mean speedrunners are there in 5 minutes, but you
right?
start where they meet at the gate.
Right. And then
And
on top of that, there's things throughout the playthrough that you no longer have to do, or timing is different on them because things were already done by the first character. So they even apply some of that logic there too, right? Like it's definitely not unheard of nowadays.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's weird. Like it's as if because the first character collected the 3 medallions and opened the goddess statue,
Hmm.
each one of those things had a second medallion with a second code to get it,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
goddess statue needs to be re-unlocked. Which that actually does play from the first to the second, because in the first one a gate goes up so you can't go back, but in the second run that gate is not there.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
an
yeah.
interesting, like, oh, I kind of get it. Like the second opening of the goddess statue actually allows us to use it as a passageway.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, because like Aria of Sorrow, once you finish the game, every subsequent playthrough, you just hit the start button during cutscenes and they go away.
Hmm.
And that's one of those things that I wasn't sure of when I was going to do it for Victory Fest last year, is if I wanted it to be a new game, so I'd have those cutscenes, or if I wanted to do it as like a semi new game plus, so I wouldn't have to deal with those.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, how does the speedrunning community feel about things like that? Like, do they include that sort of stuff as part of the run-throughs, or do they prefer like no cutscene run-throughs?
It's weird. It's all decided by the community, which is the best way to do it if you have a good community. But then we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the community stuff that I've dealt with all week because I don't want to. Um, I mean, there's actually a huge thing going on. Something happened 3 weeks ago, unrelated to the stuff that I semi just alluded to, that made me sort of happy that I'm not like a real speedrunner. I need like a phrase for what I am. Like a competent game player. I don't.
A free speedrunner.
Yeah, well, I like free speedrunning. That's good. I'm okay with that. Because there's this whole issue now about turbo buttons being used to skip through long sections of dialogue in RPGs, and whether or
Okay.
not that should be allowed or not.
Yeah.
Because, oh, if you don't have the dexterity to continue to mash the A button, maybe get out of the game. Maybe move aside. It's sort of a thing that we saw briefly happening in the Smash Brothers Melee community, with the Smash box being outlawed in tournament play.
Okay.
because that was the thing that I don't know if you've ever seen competitive Smash Brothers Melee.
Not Melee, no. No, no,
Okay.
no. I only really have gotten into competitive Smash Brothers with Ultimate, so
Yeah. So look at some of the videos. This is for everybody. Go look at videos of like what their hands are doing in high level competitive melee play. And it's not surprising that one of the people in that community had to like get surgery done on his hand.
yeah.
And that's disgusting to me. And it's like, so they developed a controller that was like less clawy, like you do a claw grip so you can
Right,
access everything correctly on a GameCube controller. And
right.
there was this whole section of that community that's like, if you're not playing on a GameCube controller, you're not playing real Smash.
Yeah.
And
They still are that way, which is why you got the GameCube release, the GameCube controller releases with Ultimate this year.
exactly, like
Yeah.
that's the way that people view this community. But then I don't understand why compromise is not a thing that exists in speedrunning. I don't
Yeah.
understand that because it's like, okay, so then we now have two leagues of Smash Brothers Melee players. We have people who only use GameCube controllers, and we have people who can use any controller that they want.
Yeah.
And you know what? You let that happen, you collect that data, and if people are only watching the guys who aren't using the GameCube controllers, then your line of thinking is outdated. Or if
Yeah, and
people don't
and
have any interest in people who are using like huge controllers that don't damage their hands.
I think right now it's trying really hard to be legitimized. Like I think esports in general is trying really hard to be seen as a legitimate thing, and it totally should be. And I don't want to argue against that in any way, right? But in a weird way, they have to accept that part of this is going to be. I don't know how to put this without like
Just saying. I mean,
there's an entertainment aspect to video games that is very apparent in a way that like we don't think about when people talk about the way that the game is played when they're talking about football or basketball or baseball. Like there's a very scientific way they talk about it, and in a lot of ways can ignore sometimes the entertainment side of things, right? So there's a lot of things that we talk about where it's like, oh, like this is only being put in to like to stop like the fun of it, and now suddenly it's the science thing, you know. And so it's a lot of the same conversations we've been having about football this year. You know, in order to save people from concussions and shit, which should be done, they are putting a lot of rules in place that are actually making the game a little less fun to watch, right? Blank, you know, like that's a
mm-hmm.
blanket statement that definitely could be
No, I
argued
mean you're not
in
wrong
ways,
though.
but
But I
right,
mean, like
right,
the reason why the no fun league is a phrase is
yeah.
because there are those people who are like, it's not fun if these guys can't possibly die.
So if you think about another sport out there that has gone in the total other direction, they've allowed so much of the entertainment to become part of it that has actually lost a lot of the sports element. That's how you end up with wrestling, right? You get the WWF and all that, and the WWE and all that crap, right? And the way that that has definitely evolved over the last 50 years from from watching guys like wrestle to suddenly watching this whole other level of like entertainment first, right? I think there's something though to the way in which the WWE balances out its styles of play in a way that allows for that sort of stuff. And I don't know if esports would be ever willing to adopt it because of what I was just saying about it being so entertainment based over sports based, whereas esports is trying so hard to be sports based over entertainment based right now. But I think that they could really, really learn something from the way that wrestling handles the different styles of matches, the different styles of events, right? And that sort of thing. I can't think of another sport out there that has that kind of flexibility in its rule sets and stuff like that. You know, like the idea that like one night is a cage match, one night is a title match, one night, you know, they get a props night, they get a props round, you know, or a table round or a ladder round. So like you get all these really cool like different styles of play in wrestling, and if you step back and look at it as that kind of thing, right? And so like I think that there's definitely a way in which esports can definitely handle that, right? You're seeing fighting games, but this one's an all joystick match, or this one is an all GameCube controller match, and then this one is like you know a championship match, and because it is a like a title quote unquote title match, there are certain rules that we all accept as a community to title matches, you know, and I think that they could actually get a lot of value out of that. I don't know if they'd ever be willing to go that way because right now, like I said, they're trying so hard to legitimize it that I think there's too many rules being applied too fast in an effort to legitimize the sport.
And that is the big issue. It's that everything is so quickly decided upon. They're not allowing themselves, like football has been played for at least 53 years, and then before that, right? There's been 53 Super Bowls. And football existed well before that. Right? We can all agree that Leatherheads happened in real life, kind of.
It did.
But my point is that it's through 53 years of like Super Bowls and other things that we've collected data and been able to do the things that make football the huge like money printing machine that it is.
Yeah.
And if they're in an effort to legitimize themselves, they're not willing to put in the time to collect that data and assess that data, then it's just going to fail. I mean, it's not failing now. It's $1 billion industry. Esports is $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But
well, and the measuring stick that they were trying to use to measure themselves as a quote unquote legitimate thing 15 years ago was things like ESPN. And we now live in a world in which actually ESPN is not the measuring stick to bother with anymore when you're trying to talk about legitimate sport, right? Like it's interesting because the issues that esports have evolved so much to the point where I think the world has actually changed enough to just let esports be a thing. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, exactly. I mean, come on.
There's so much work and effort that they were putting into legitimizing themselves, quote unquote, like a decade ago that has actually all not mattered in the end because everything that they were fighting for then doesn't even exist anymore.
Right, and they're part of the reason why it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like there are legitimate like $50,000 prize pool competitions that are only broadcast on Twitch. And they get thousands upon thousands of viewers, and they have like sponsors who are like, yes, it's worth throwing money into this so that our game is exposed.
Well, and they sell tickets to that shit, and there's entrance fees. So, like, on top of the fact that they're getting Twitch viewers and advertisement dollars there, they're also getting dollars on the ground. That I know that that's never a huge percentage of this sort of stuff, but it doesn't hurt.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. They're at least covering in some way, shape, or form their investment with some dollars on the ground. I don't know. It's just weird. It's one of these weird things. And it's like, and then one of the arguments is, well, there's no way to police it. Like, we have no way of policing if this person is using a turbo controller or if they're legitimately hitting the button.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a dumb thing. Like, yes, but cheating exists in all competition.
But like boxing and wrestling, and legitimate wrestling in this case, like boxing and Olympic style, like legitimate wrestling, they do things like weigh-ins. Like every 3 months, every 6 months, like you've got to show up and prove that you are doing these things. You know, there's bodies out there that are like in a place to keep an eye on things like making sure people are safely keeping up with their training and their dieting and things like that. They have to go and get checkups from doctors and shit. So like that's the kind of stuff that we don't hear about yet in esports that maybe needs to start happening. Is we do need to put a couple of institutions in place that are just keeping an eye on things like maybe guys are going to get checked for carpal tunnel more often so that they're not in the need of surgery after a big tournament and that sort of shit, you know. Like maybe people do need to do a quote unquote weigh-in where maybe they need to submit like a round or two of Dota to show how they're playing, to show that they're doing legitimate quote unquote legitimate things, you know. Like there's ways to do that sort of stuff. So and we'll get there, but like you were saying, it's all happening so fast and decisions are hard decisions. That's the worst part, is they're making these decisions and then they're just saying, that's it, this is the rule forever. And it's just like, well, calm down, guys. How about, hey, this is the next thing we're going to try. Let's think of it that way. Because if you think of it as this is the hard rule now, you're going to breed a bunch of people that just keep getting pissed off because the quote unquote rules of the game keep changing. And it's crazy.
I think of what I really liked in the beginning when I first started to get into this stuff on like some sort of like participation level was communities are responsible for policing their own game.
Yeah.
And so I went to actual community site for Link to the Past stuff, and it says you need to show your controller inputs in order for any run to be considered.
Yeah.
And then I was just watching a stream, and someone's like, how come some people have their input shown on screen? And the streamer's like, I don't know why they do that. That makes no sense to me. And I said, well, community guidelines for Link to the Past say that you need to show your controller inputs in order for a run to be considered valid for like certain adjudication purposes. And the streamer's like, that's wrong. You were wrong. And I just walked away from that because I'm like, no, I'm not, because I do it for that reason. Because I checked the community board and I saw, and that has since been changed. That's no longer a valid thing. I mean, if you're like submitting world records and stuff, they do want you to do that. And part of that is turbo controllers as well, because hovering is a skill in the game of Link to the Past. And if you have a turbo controller, you just hold down the turbo button, you can hover anywhere you want.
It's not a skill anymore, right? Yeah.
And it's so that's why they need it. They need to make sure that you're not using like left right inputs that allow you to like clip through things.
Right.
So I get it, but to have someone tell me you're absolutely wrong, that is 100% not the reason why. And it's like, first of all, it's a good explanation for why, even if it's not true, right? Like it could just be conjecture on my part that that's required. But also, I have the proof that that's what this community wants.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the fact of the matter is, you know, the community, you were part of that community, and that is what is required in that community.
Yeah,
you're
right. That's right. Like, but it's like one of those things where it's like this person doesn't know, right? This person does not know. But like it's one of those things where sometimes you see an explanation for something and you're like, that's a pretty good explanation for it. I'm not sure. But instead of being like dismissive of somebody offering an explanation, to be like, I mean, that could be it. I don't know. Like, you just admitted you don't know why people do it. Why would an explanation coming in, you'd be like, no, that's 100% not the case. You're an idiot.
Humility? Are you kidding me?
Oh, you're right. It's the internet. And that's one of the reasons why I run away from the internet. And it's weird that I do a podcast and do all the other stuff that I do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's why we're here, man. We got to clean up the internet.
Yeah, we're the keyboard cowboys. We are samurai.
Be the change that you profess to need. You know, man. That's
true. I mean, that's exactly what I try to do. And with this last time, this brief moment of time that we have left in this episode, I had another thing I wanted to talk to you about. I don't know what we've talked about this episode. 52 minutes in, this is going to be the hardest synopsis of an episode for me to write ever. Just like
video games.
Heads
up. Surprised?
Like,
question mark. There you go.
Like but it feels like it's so much more in depth than that. But I would like to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
And the fact that on Sunday, with Say Report Jr. and a couple of Dale's friends, Joe and Liz, I played 12 hours of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, man.
And I loved it.
It was a trip.
We're finishing it after this. We're going to finish it. So if you didn't see us live on Friday, go to twitch.tv/The Say Report and watch the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. We won't have the secret ending because we haven't been collecting secret Mickeys. Because
you guys were collecting some secret Mickeys, I will say.
You need 90 of them on beginner mode in order to get it. You need to find every single one.
Okay. That's
and
ridiculous.
Apparently it's just Verum Rex stuff. Like, it's not like at the end, Nick Fury shows up and he's like, Sora, do you want to make a difference?
Oh, God.
Do you want to avenge Roxas?
Oh, man.
Have I got a team for you? No, it's like a trailer for the next game that they're going to do.
Because surprise, surprise, after all the build-up for this being the one that was going to, like, wrap up some storylines, there's going to be more Kingdom Hearts. Don't worry, everybody.
I mean, based on the stuff that I've heard, like, Joe and your brother have played the game and seen the secret ending. I wonder if it's just a trailer for the next Square Enix game, and it's completely unrelated to Kingdom Hearts.
Not Kingdom Hearts?
Like,
that'd be amazing.
Oh, you got to visit this world on your Kingdom Hearts thing, and that was your teaser trailer for the next Square Enix property. Nice. And I think that would be better, honestly.
That would be the most Square Enix ass like Japanese thing I've ever heard. They backdoor piloted in a new anime video game series. Like, we heard you like Final Fantasies and Metal Gears and shit, so here's what we're doing.
Yeah, that'd be fine. And I'd be okay with it. But yeah, I did want to. I've played every numbered Kingdom Hearts game.
Okay.
I'm not a crazy person. No offense to you or your brother or Joe or like probably 60% of the Kingdom Hearts fan base.
Hmm.
I did not need to play Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, mobile games
I'm
with
telling you,
this.
man. Everybody keeps talking about how crazy it is that I've played more than the mainline three, but when half of the other games are just movies with button presses in them, like not even QuickTime events, just straight up, just like, here's a 45-minute cutscene. Oh, here's another 45-minute cutscene. Oh, here's a 30-minute cutscene. It's just like, okay, why did I even, I could have put this into my DVD player, guys. I didn't need to play this. Thanks.
No, we needed you to interact with it. We needed you to feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's but so I've played them and I always get to a point in the Kingdom Hearts games where
Sure.
I'm like, I'm tired of the combat. This combat is dumb. It's why I'm gonna finish The Secret of Mana this year. But The Secret of Mana is another game that I play and all I can think of, why is this the combat?
Can I tell you the secret to Kingdom Hearts combat?
Was the secret to Kingdom Hearts combat?
You just summon Simba. That's it. That's all
I
you got to
hate you
do.
so
You
much.
just got to summon Simba.
I didn't have Simba at the time. As soon as I got Simba, I summoned him for you, you son of a bitch.
It was perfect.
And it was cool. I was on a fire lion jumping around. Felt like Pokemon. But like this game, the fighting is so fluid. Like it doesn't feel as rigid as it did in Kingdom Hearts or Kingdom Hearts 2. And that
Yeah,
is huge
I can see that.
for
I can see
me.
that for sure.
Like huge for me to like feel like the game is not fighting against me.
Hmm.
And that is why like the epiphany of 2019 so far for Devon Decker is I don't really care about your story. I don't really care about your gameplay. I need a good control scheme.
Hmm.
I mean, I could be doing the same thing. Harvest Moon is a perfect example of it. Harvest Moon is a game where you run a farm. You run a farm. That's what you do. The gameplay is creating and maintaining a farm. The reason why I continued to play Harvest Moon an entire 2 years, and that's every day. The game works in like realish time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
I played Stardew for 6 months. I
Yeah,
know where you're
exactly.
at.
Like the reason why I played that game and continued to play that game was because it controlled so nicely. Like it didn't feel like I was ever fighting with the game to play the game. There's a
Yeah.
reason why like I have beaten every Mega Man game, and it is because Mega Man controls like a dream.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Is the reason why I like the top-down Zeldas as opposed to the 3D Zeldas, because having control of Link means something to me. Like
Yeah, you're making me think of the Prince of Persia 2008 Prince of Persia made by the guys that
with the
made the Devil May
lady.
Cry there with Nolan North and yeah, where the entire thing is just a parkour game, and it's short. It's only about 6 hours long if you really just sit down and play it. So you could even do it in an afternoon, and it doesn't do anything to the original storyline at all. Like it's completely divorced from the original
Yeah, it's
Prince
a
of
different
Persia.
game. I played it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like there's no real value to it because it ends on this major ass cliffhanger, even if you get the DLC, which I had at the time, and even if you play the DLC, it doesn't do anything to the cliffhanger. It just kind of just ends again on the same cliffhanger. It's crazy. So like there's not even like a cathartic ending to that game or any of that shit. But oh my God, what felt so good was playing that game, right? It was like running around walls, jumping off, and then the combat being added into that flow, that parkour flow was so good. It just felt good, right? And so like I played that game like 2 or 3 times over, back in the days of I think I had that on the 360 or some
Yeah,
shit. Like the
360
last time.
PS3 is when it came out. So
Yeah, the last time I owned an Xbox system, which was almost 10 years ago at this point, that I played through that game a few times, and yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. Like if there's good controls and it just feels good to do, I mean, Destiny is an example of that for me.
right, so
It just
Destiny's
feels
an
good to shoot
example.
things.
Destiny's a perfect example of that for me because I don't care about the story. I just want to be like it. It's really good FPS gameplay.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
I don't really like first person shooters, but Destiny, it just feels so satisfying, like connecting with the bad guys
Yeah.
when I'm fighting them, that I don't care that I'm playing a first person shooter because of how well the game is built and controls. And also, speaking of that Prince of Persia one, we're going to talk about this next episode, right? Next episode, I'm gonna give you the title for it right now. It's called Resolving All the Cliffhangers. Because I said we were going to talk about Bill and Ted and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. We never did that. And I'm going to add to that, and it makes sense because it's time travel, Donnie Darko.
Okay.
And you know what Prince of Persia 2008 feels like to me? The video game response to the world losing its collective shit over Donnie Darko.
Oh God. Okay. All
Think
right.
about it. Think about
All
the
right.
ending of that game and what it means as a whole for that game. And it's
Okay.
like it's very similar. I
Okay.
hate Donnie Darko. There's
Okay.
there's your actual tag. Devon Decker hates Donnie Darko. Listen
No.
to next week's Say Report to find out
And
why.
Siegen doesn't love it. That'll be the caveat.
Oh, hell yeah!
I don't hate Donnie Darko. I will never say that I hate Donnie Darko. I understand why it became. We'll talk about it more next
Oh, we're
week.
going to talk about it more next week. I figured you loved it, and I want to hug you through the computer screen right now because of just how wonderful it is.
Yeah,
To know that there's a reason we're friends. And it could be all the other stuff, all the other examples I could point to. But if I had to put one thing in a museum years from now, it would be we're both kind of meh about Donnie Darko. And we'll explore why next week. So until then, if you'd like to remind me of what we talked about this episode, because literally I am Taylor Swift right now. I got a blank space, baby. You write your name to @Devon D. Decker on Twitter.
Oh my God. And if you want to talk to me about anything that we talked about this week that I may have grossly misrepresented in some way, don't worry. You can always find me at Siege versus the World.
Esports.
But I do also just want to throw out just a quick note. If you want to get in touch with anybody that's going to be streaming, this isn't going to come out before you guys stream tonight, though.
No, unfortunately not.
Do you know how much my dream is right now is to get a community of people screaming at you guys to summon Simba all night?
You could do that. You understand that you are sitting there in front of a computer. You could literally contact everyone who you're friends with on Facebook and be like, hey, go to this website and just type in summon Simba.
That's all you got to do. That's all you
I just need you to
do.
What you're doing is like they have the ability to raid existing streams.
Right.
On Twitch. You're doing a IRL raid. If you're like just contact everybody and like go to this website and type it into chat, summon Simba. You could do that right now. And you know what's great? I get to report back on if you were successful. There's another cliffhanger. Okay, so here's the actual thing. If there is something that we have brought up on the show saying that we are going to talk about this topic and you never got a satisfying conclusion to that, get at us at The Say Report on Twitter or send us an email to thesayreport@gmail.com. And next week, when I attempt to resolve the 3 cliffhangers that I know of right now, I will also try to incorporate your cliffhanger.
I'm sure Will has a couple.
Oh, I'm sure Will has a couple. And speaking of that, let us throw to the Luigi, to my Mario and your Toad. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.